message tonight will come from one of those great chapters in the scriptures, the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter. And it will focus on one of those great men in the Bible, Moses. And specifically, I want to focus on something we have been discussing and learning about here at Gilgal for the past few weeks, called the eternal perspective. And how it is that an eternal perspective is absolutely essential if you want to make the choices in life that glorify God. If you want to be a good decision maker in life, if you want to make the best of the best possible choices, this will be impossible for you if you have not taken hold of an eternal perspective. And I think that if there's a life in Scripture we can look at to evaluate making good and bad choices, Moses is certainly one we can learn a great deal from. And I want to emphasize a specific choice Moses made at a very specific time in his life. And I think this is one of what we may call the great choices of life. It's a great choice of life because it's one of those choices that will not only affect your productivity in this life, but it will affect your degree of reward in the life to come, or perhaps even your eternal destiny. And you see, it's very important for us to really carefully discern those choices in life that really will have a lasting impact on the life to come and in the life here and now. And so Moses gives us a very good example of what is one of the great choices of life that I think it's important for us to really understand. In Hebrews chapter 11, we're told, beginning in verse 23, that it's by faith. Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. And so we hear that there is a legacy of faith and a heritage of faith when it comes to Moses. His parents refused to concede to this edict that would have claimed the life of their boy by faith. And then in verse 24, it's by faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing to endure ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. So we have at least two things here specific about the choice Moses makes. It says, first of all, when he had grown up. You know, one of the saddest things to see in life is a grown-up person who has yet matured to the level where they are making the responsible choices in life that every adult should be making. I'm from the United States. I can't speak about other countries, but it's very sad nowadays that it's so common. We have 19, 20, 25-year-olds who have yet come to a level of maturity where they are making responsible choices. 20 years old, still need mama or daddy to make this choice and that decision for them. It's really sad. So when Moses had grown up, he made one of the biggest choices of his life, in other words. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. In other words, he grew up and he decided to renounce his citizenship. He renounced his prestige. He renounced his luxury. I mean, let's just keep something in mind here. Understand this. In those days, Egypt was a world power. Egypt was no insignificant society. Egypt was a place of great prestige and of high learning and of great achievement, of great geopolitical importance to this region. And Moses is considered the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Moses is considered to be one of the members of the royal family. So not only is he a citizen of one of the greatest societies of his times, but he is a member of the royal family. And it says that he chose to take his Egyptian passport, if I may illustrate, by analogy, and he burned it. He chose to sever himself from all of the privilege of not only being an Egyptian citizen, but being a member of the royal family. But the text also says he made this choice for the sake of making another choice. And that choice is he chose to endure ill treatment with the people of God. Now let's just compare the people of God with the people and society of Egypt at that time. The people of God, that is the people of Israel at this time, were slaves in Egypt. These people were under the lash of slavery and forced labor. And these people were under the edict that almost took Moses' life. So Moses is choosing to go back to the people with whom he was born into this world and with whom he almost was killed. And notice the text doesn't say he chose to be with the people of God because it was going to be an easy life. It says he chose to endure ill treatment with the people of God. And you know, this is not just something unique to the people of God back in those days. I want to tell you something, young people. As you continue to grow and serve and be a part of your churches and all the other organizations of the faith that you can be involved with, you're going to find that being with the people of God sometimes can be very difficult. Sometimes the people of God can disappoint you. They will disappoint you. Sometimes the people of God will break your heart. If you were just to study the whole life of Moses, This man's dealings with the people of God was tears and pain and disappointment upon disappointment. But I want you to remember one thing. God never promised that being with his people in this life would be easy, that there would be no conflicts, that there would be no suffering, that it would be all just nice social club and everyone is going to get along all the time and there'll be no issues. He never promised that. But here's something I want you to always remember, that the people of God are still the people of God. And it would be one of the greatest mistakes of your life if you ever choose to turn away from being with the people of God. You won't always like every choice your pastors make or your leaders make. But anything aside from just clear and blatant sin and or apostasy or heresy, you might want to think twice before you choose to just walk away or hop from congregation to congregation or ministry to ministry, thinking that someday you're going to find this group of being with the people of God where everything's going to be perfect and fine and there'll never be no issues. No, young people. No, saints. It's not an easy and always comfortable, smooth, and relaxing, sweet time with being with the people of God. But I will tell you this for certain. There is no other better group of people you can choose to be dedicated in this life, in this world, than with the people of God, because despite the fact that they're imperfect, they are still God's people. And the one who began a good work in them will be faithful to complete it. And as it's been well said throughout the world, when you think you have found that perfect ministry or congregation or church, just remember when you join it, what's going to happen. It'll be imperfect the moment you join it. So Moses is fully aware of what he's facing and what he's leaving. He realizes that when you're making aliyah from Sweden to Israel, it's not going to be that easy to find a job. As all of these Jewish people around the world who make aliyah come to realize that, it was a lot easier when I was in America or Canada. But it's that same love and that same understanding of the significance and importance of sticking with the people of God that Moses has realized. So he chose to do ill treatment with the people of God rather than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. Now you see the contrast here? Being with the world and being with all of these things and peoples and groups and organizations or whatever life you can have apart from the people of God, it's going to come with some pleasures. And there are many of saints who start out very well and they fall away and they get caught up in this life or doing this or doing that, and they find so much pleasure in it. But I like the modifier here, the passing pleasures of sin. Now we're getting to the perspective that enables Moses to make such a radical choice, considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt. For he was looking to the reward. He was looking to the reward. you will never realize and experience your fullest potential as a disciple of Christ, as a Christian, as a believer, whatever you want to identify yourself as, if you do not keep your hopes and your sights set on eternity. Over and over again, you just read throughout the New Covenant, and you will find that almost invariably, every time the apostles and writers of the New Covenant are trying to push us and motivate us towards godliness and a more serious commitment, the motivating factor is our eternal reward. This is one of the chief motivating factors for seriousness and a lifelong commitment unto the Lord. And we discover here that even Moses was driven by eternity. And earlier in this very same chapter, we discovered that Abraham likewise. He was looking for a city which has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And one of the amazing things about Hebrews 11 and using so many examples of the Old Covenant is that it really sort of gets us past this misconception that somehow these guys were just so oblivious to all of the things that we learn about the life to come and the eternal hope that we discover more clearly and vividly in the New Covenant. But the truth is that from the beginning, the men of faith were men who were driven and living with an eternal perspective. And beloved, I just think that the moment you cease to be motivated and driven by this perspective will be a turning point in your walk with the Lord. It will be. Almost in any case of a believer who started out strong or who made a radical turn for the worse in their journey in the faith, I'm almost certain that you can, the determining factor was a loss of an eternal perspective. You see, because just like in the case of Moses, the eternal perspective on life, it really protects you from a lot of things. I think it's one of your greatest defenses. It's one of the greatest defenses for a believer against all of the snares of the enemy. Because you see, according to Hebrews 11, Moses was able to say no to the passing pleasures of sin. Why? Because his perspective was eternal. He was looking for the reward. And you see, the devil's temptations, the world, the flesh, and the devil, they're all calculated to succeed and be most efficient and effective against those who have no perspective on eternity, who lack the eternal perspective. They'll calculate it to really be most successful against those who for any given moment or season in life have begun to focus solely on the temporal. And so you are a very vulnerable prey to the enemy when you do not have this eternal perspective on life. So, beloved, one of the greatest choices you're going to have to make in life, I know many of you believe you have made it, and I trust many of you have already. But these choices, we must understand, when they are tested, and in seasons of life where you experience great disappointment or hurt or attack from this or that way, we really have to renew these choices. And choosing to be with the people of God, I tell you, beloved, is one of the greatest choices in life. And be prepared at all times to renew and reinforce that choice, because the people of God are just what that phrase says. They are God's people. They're not perfect. They won't always be the easiest people to get along with, but they are still God's people. And in the end, it's the people of God who will be victorious. It is the people of God with whom we want to be in that number. So, beloved, build your hopes on things eternal. Don't lose sight of the eternal reward. And make sure that your decision making in life, the choices you make, are always kept in perspective of eternity. And if your desire is to live a life that glorifies God, you will not miss the mark when you keep your eyes and heart set on eternity.
Herren välsigne dig och bevare dig. Låter sitt ansikte lysa och vare dig nådig. Herren vänder sitt ansikte till dig och giver dig frid. Herren välsigne dig och bevare dig. Låter sitt ansikte lysa och vare dig nådig. Herren vänder sitt ansikte till dig och giver dig frid. Han ska ge dig kraft till att leva, ge hopp och framtidstro. Han har sagt, kom till mig du som strävar, och jag ska ge dig ro. Han ska bevara dig från allt ont, ge dig styrka när du är svag. Trots dina svek, dina nederlag, är hans nåd ny var dag, ny var dag. Herren välsigne dig och bevare dig, låter sitt ansikte lysa och vare dig nådig. Herren vänder sitt ansikte till dig och giver dig frid. Amen. Amen.
Hallelujah.